Not all leaders stand in front of the room. Some lead without titles, without recognition, and without ever raising their voices. This kind of invisible leadership shows up in quiet gestures, unnoticed sacrifices, and small acts that ripple far beyond the moment. Today, we want to talk about why the quietest leaders often leave the loudest impact. So let's go ahead and get into it. Kari, when we're talking about invisible leadership, what does that mean to you? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, Ken, I was thinking about it this weekend, the power of quiet influence. And I was thinking about a post that I did recently. The whole premise of it was around that culture isn't shaped by the people that are the loudest in the room, but it's often built around those quiet moments that nobody sees. And an
Yeah.
example of that happened to me recently was I was washing clothes and had some other things going on. And so those clothes just kind of sat there on the couch for a couple of days. And it was driving me crazy, but I just keep walking past these clothes. And so I just finally said, all right, let me just go ahead and just put these clothes away and stuff. And so I was, kind of frustrated because I had let them sit out for so long. And then all of a sudden, my son just came up from downstairs, sat next to me on the couch, saw what I was doing, and he just got right into it. Didn't miss a beat, didn't say anything. And so what that reminded me was that a lot of times what we need to be as leaders is not the ones that are overly verbose and saying, "Hey, look at me, look what I'm doing,"
Yeah.
but just dig right in and just do what needs to be done and solve a need and serve other people when they're in that state of neediness. So that was what it kind of reminded me of, is just doing what needs to be done,
Yeah.
not being that loud voice, but really looking at those quiet moments when nobody's watching, and sometimes when people are not even asking for help, but giving that help when they need assistance anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that true leadership often is proven when no one is looking.
Right.
It's kind of those small, consistent actions
Yes, sir.
that we do behind the scenes, and that will long outlast, long speeches or slogans, just doing
That's right.
those, things when no one is looking.
And the second thing I was thinking about as we were looking at back on what we were going to talk about this week, I was also thinking about how this is one of my favorite times of year, right? So football season just kicked off. College season is in the midst, and NFL just kicked off last night. And so one of the things that they're really instituting this year in the NFL is not of a lot of over boisterous taunting, and you make a play, you stand over a player. So they're really trying to crack down on that. And so what that reminded me was true influence, it doesn't need a spotlight. It's not about, selfies and look at me. It is one of those things where you do what you're supposed to do and good things will happen. It also reminded me of recently, and I talked about this before, when I was on vacation a couple of weeks ago. I was in this beautiful, majestic place, and the mountains there were doing what they were supposed to do. They were standing there in steepness and all their beauty, and leadership often works in that way, and that quiet, steady, and deeply formative moment. And so I think that's what a lot of times as leaders, that's what we need to do, is just be who we are,
Yeah.
be that steady rock that people can rely upon. And that's where that true influence is really being built.
I think to add to that, the best leaders don't always seek that recognition. They simply
Oh,
align their actions with their
mhm,
values. And if
mhm.
you if we go back and talk about that analogy of like the mountains, those
Yeah,
mountains are sitting there, they're shaping thoughts in silence. And
that's
so
right.
invisible leaders shape their teams without
Yeah.
words. Their presence alone kind of creates a stability, a rhythm, and most of all, it builds trust.
Yes,
So I think the person who kind of organizes, prepares, not for applause, but
that's
they
right.
do that because they care. And
As
so I think
absolutely.
that's a very good aspect of that quiet influence
Yep.
when we talk about leading.
Absolutely. And because you also know what to expect. And so no
Right.
one's caught off guard, right? And so that's another point to it. And then my last point is, again, I'm kind of in this football season mode of, if leadership was a sport, those invisible leaders would be water boys or water people. They would
Yeah.
go being that essential person, where they boost teams morale, but their job is very important. And so I
Right.
think that again goes to this whole theme of that power of quiet influence, doing what you're supposed to do, not seeking that extra recognition, but also making sure that you're giving what the team needs. And so I remember one time I sent a thank you email to someone who always would arrive early to meetings to make sure things were set up and make sure everything was good. And they just said something like, "Hey, this is what I do. I just like to be involved. I like symmetry, and I appreciate you, but I'm not doing it for recognition." And so, to me, that's what it's all about. Is
Yeah.
that person that wants to do what needs to be done. They're not asking for that recognition. They're not seeking it, but they're just doing what is required, and really taking that servant leadership and that supportive stance to make sure that things go well for the team.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that, and an example that I kind of was thinking about when I was putting my notes and thoughts together was, I remember a time where we were in the office, everyone was busy working, and I had gone out and bought this little book of, sticky thank you notes.
Mhm.
And some of them were like, it just says stuff like, well done, you're appreciated. I remember a funny one was like, smile now while you still have teeth, you know, these funny little just kind of thank yous. And so I literally just went around the office and I stuck them on people's desks. I stuck some on their computers. And, I even went kind of an extra mile and I knew kind of who the cars that my colleagues drove. So I went to the parking garage and kind of stuck some of them on their windows. And to this day, no one ever knows that I did that. I mean, well,
Oh,
they,
nice.
if they're watching, they
Yeah.
kind of know now. But, you know, I think that that was kind of that quiet moment in leadership where I knew the team was doing a great job, and without
Yep.
even telling them, I just went and stuck these notes on there and didn't seek any recognition for it. I wasn't looking for somebody to come back and say, "Oh, Kenneth, that was very sweet of you." It was just
Yep.
one of the things I did, and to this day, like I said, I those people got those notes, and they probably don't know who did it, but it was just kind of my way of just kind of those little boost you moments,
Yeah.
without even thinking about it. So I think that
And
that was
everybody needs a little boost your moment, you know?
exactly,
I mean,
exactly,
that's
exactly.
important, so
Yeah.
kudos to you.
Thank you, sir. See, so there's there's that recognition. Ah, any last words of wisdom, Kari?
No, I just wanna say, I think this is a really good, important conversation to have. I think a lot of times people are seeking that recognition, and that can kind of throw things askew. And
Very
so
true.
sometimes it's important just to do what needs to be done, as we talked about. And in your case, doing something, recognizing people and doing it kind of undercover, that goes a long way. And so I won't say anything. I won't tell folks that that was you who was sticking stuff on
I
their
think they
sticky
know
notes on the
now.
car. But that's important, man. So again, I think that was those are great things to do to make sure that people are being
Yeah,
recognized
yeah,
but not seeking that
agreed.
recognition.
To
Yeah.
our audience, quiet leaders shape culture, not headlines. Invisible leadership shows us that influence doesn't always need a spotlight. It's in those small, consistent acts, the fingerprints left behind in everyday moments, the values expressed through care and attention. So the next time you think leadership is about titles or grand gestures, remember the quiet leaders often leave the deepest impact. Sometimes the most powerful form of leadership is the one no one notices. If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and join the conversation in the comments. Who's the quiet leader in your life that shaped your world without even realizing it? Let's celebrate the power of influence that goes unseen.
I want to remind everybody to lead with love, laugh with grace, and lift someone up today. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Join us on the next video when we talk about the table versus the tower, rethinking leadership hierarchies. Ciao for now.